We had gotten off of work at the burger restaurant a little early. Something in the freezers had failed, and we had to tell the regulars that we couldn't serve them because of the freezers. The first few said that they didn't mind and wouldn't tell anybody about it. We knew almost all of them by name. Like, for example, Greg and the girl he was cheating on his wife with. They had shown up to park by the trash cans again. They did this every couple of weeks. And I swear I wouldn't have cared about that jerk getting sick from our burgers thawing out before it was time to cook them. My friend John showed up to pick up Neil and myself right after our shift, asking if we could sneak out a burger. Neil explained the freezer situation to him as we were passing by the mess going on in the car by the trash cans. "You can't get sick from eating thawed meat," John said, looking back at me in the car. Neil answered for me, saying, "I know, but our new manager shut it down." It had happened before, well, when the power went out completely and nothing, not even the sign that lit up our menu was working. We had to go through half the menu for those that were pulling up to the window still. And all the lights were off, imagine that, and we still had to make it work. It was sad what happened, though, to Jane Gonzalez, the manager. She was the best and actually gave us rides home when we were still in high school. Christmas gifts. Nobody deserves to die like she did. Though I guess nobody is really sure if she died. She disappeared, and eventually the authorities assumed she was dead. It was somehow always there in the back of our minds. John asked us what we wanted to do, and of course, Neil was going to want to go to Chicken Jill by the edge of the road. Lucy used to work there, and he wanted to go see her, or at least make his presence known, as he used to say. They had just hired a new guy that had been texting Lucy about more than just work schedules and whatnot. So we pulled up around 9:30 or so. No one was in the parking lot, and the place looked deserted. Through the large windows, we could see Lucy and the other guy, a tall dude with frizzy hair, standing next to her. They seemed to be having a good time, which was enough for Neil to jump out of the car and go straight for the door. John and I kind of laughed about it as he was going up there. The two weren't even dating, Neil and Lucy, I mean. She was stringing him along ever since they went out to watch one of the new Saw movies. It was all Neil could talk about for a couple of weeks, of how Lucy grabbed his hand and how that must have meant something. I had to listen to him at work for hours, deciphering every second of it, and even watching the movie again. Eventually, I got really into it and tried to analyze it as much as possible to see if she really liked him or whatever. Imagine that, and it all started as a joke. My conclusion was that she was just doing it for attention, along with the other dozens of text messages I got stuck deciphering. But, of course, as a good friend, I told him that it seemed like she was into him. That was a mistake. You see, that night we got out to order something instead of passing by the drive-thru. The other guy had just gone to the back while Neil and Lucy were talking about something serious that we interrupted. Lucy used it as a chance to get away from the conversation and asked us if we wanted anything. They never had chicken strips so late, but I decided to ask for them anyway. Quickly, she reached for a paper bag, skipping the box completely, and added 2 pieces in there, immediately staining the bag with oil. I heard her tell Neil that she didn't want to talk about it anymore and that they were about to close, that she just needed to finish off the floors. It was insane and very awkward. Neil was quiet, angry. The other guy finally came up to us, rushing and telling us to lock the doors, and I got to see his name tag. Michael, assistant manager. Neil's eyes fired a beam so dense toward this guy, we could feel it. When Michael realized that no one was paying attention to him, he rushed toward the doors and locked them, placing a bar that was behind the trash can over the door handles. He ran back toward the counter, turning off every light, although the menu stayed on, and Neil hadn't moved. Lucy went up to Michael and asked him what he had seen and if it was in the back again. He stayed quiet and looked at us before speaking up. "It's back there. I saw it this time. I have video of it." The light of his phone shined on Lucy first, who was looking at Neil in the dimly lit fast food restaurant. Michael waited for his rival to come closer, but instead he just stood there in silence. Michael pressed play. After a few seconds, Lucy gasped. She leaned closer to the screen, her elbows on the counter looking down at the phone. There There was something menacing about watching Neil standing there, though. The guy was otherwise a normal person. He wouldn't take anything too seriously until Lucy came along. But now, I was feeling the urge to tell this new guy to not turn his back on Neil. I leaned closer from the other side of the counter to see the phone screen. Michael immediately started it over for me to see. The recording was of the brown tiles of the kitchen floor, his black shoes squishing against the puddle as he went toward the drive-through window that looked across the street from the dark woods. Private property, or so they used to say. But my dad and I went over once to get to a river. Even during the day it was dark. I don't remember any private property signs, and I knew what they were because all of our neighbors used to display them like trophies. But as the video pointed out toward the woods, a set of headlights started shining on the trees. And out there, an abnormally tall and thin figure dashed across the trees. Michael gasped and opened up the drive-through window, stuck the phone out to get a closer look, but just as he stabilizes the phone, the thing begins dashing across the street and straight for the parking lot of the restaurant. And it didn't run like a person. It stopped and started, jerking forward in unnatural, twisted movements. And when it paused, it almost looked like it was listening, deciding. Another car passes just at that instant, and the figure waits for it to pass and then rushes back to the woods. A text message notification showed up on his phone. It was from Margaret, saying to not call the police, to stay inside because... and the message cut out. So he took his phone, with Lucy asking him what Margaret said. I assumed it was the manager of Chicken Jill. And just then, John shouts and points toward the windows. "What the hell is that?" he said, walking slowly toward us. We could all see it. From the parking lot, this tall figure, like a spider with only 2 legs, pale, the color of raw chicken. It had a small head after a long neck, and I knew we were all thinking the same thing, that this wasn't happening, that it must have been some type of prank. I 100% expected for Michael to act like the hero and defend Lucy, save her life, and then drive off into the night. But the guy was freaking out, shaking and hiding behind the counter now. John was next to us, ducking next to the ice machine, while I stood completely still, afraid to move. Neil wasn't having any of it. He was quiet and looking out toward the window and then looking back at Michael and Lucy. "It went back, let's go," John whispered, rushing toward the door and looking for a way to unlock it. Michael went behind him, and Lucy and I followed except for Neil. He was standing in front of the ordering counter. Lucy got in with us in the car, and Michael ran to the minivan across the lot and drove off. "Where's Neil? Get Neil!" I remember John shouting at Lucy. Lucy opened the door and screamed and waved at Neil for him to follow, but he didn't budge. We could all see a silhouette standing in the restaurant against the lights of the menu board. I asked if we could lock the door, but we all knew nobody was going to want to get out of the car. And that's when the figure appeared in the woods again. Across the street, slower this time. And we all got a good look. John put the car in reverse. "Neil!" Lucy yelled, crying. John changed it into drive now, and the figure was approaching us fast. We drove toward the opposite side of the parking lot, and then onto the road. Lucy was screaming and kicking the seats, watching Neil's silhouette standing there, refusing to move. The figure was approaching, but it slowed down. It didn't have to run anymore, and we didn't either. It had found a victim. It had already won. John was flooring the gas pedal now, and even though he was in a panic, I knew that he was unsure if he should keep on driving or go back to get Neil. The last thing we saw was the thing going toward the front of the restaurant. We went to drop off Lucy first and stayed in the car, fighting about what we did or what we should have done. This whole time I had been calling Neil, and the call connected but was never answered until, after I called saying it was the last try for the 3rd or 4th time, he picked up. Lucy yelled at the phone asking if he was all right. "I'm fine," he said, calmly. "Nothing to be afraid of. What are you guys up to?" The The call went out. Then Lucy's phone buzzed. It's Neil. He's asking what we're up to. She tried calling him, but he didn't pick up. When Neil didn't show up to the burger place the next day, we called the police. His parents showed up to the closed fast food joint. We had met them a few times. They didn't say hi. They didn't have to. We all agreed to tell the truth, but nobody believed us. One of the detectives that reached out 2 weeks after that happened to mention that he had heard something similar before, but that it must have been something else because it made no sense. I knew it made no sense, but all of our stories lined up. We had all been there. 2 months after that, Neil was presumed dead. That's what the authorities said. All of our tries to talk about what happened got shut down. Not even the tiny newspaper that we had wanted to ask us anything about it. They just wrote it out as a strange incident and disappearance. Of course, I have my theories. Jane Gonzalez, our old manager from the burger place, disappeared the same way. And that was enough for stories to start circulating at the time. That she had been taken by kidnappers or some more out there stories, which honestly seemed much more likely now. That a thing had come out of the woods and taken her. I thought of everyone around that town and how life would just continue as always. Greg and the girl parking by the trash cans. Lucy going back to Chicken Jill because she needed the money. Michael, he quit and went to another place. When John and I hang out, all we do is talk about what happened that night. He eventually found something online that would help us, or at least offer some guidance, even though it could have all been made up. It was a post from a trucker. He had typed it out in an obscure overlanding forum. His conversation with a man he met at a gas station. Here's what it said. Locals don't have a name for it, but watch out if you're passing by I-83 around central Birchtown. A lurker, a figure that appears at gas stations, diners, and fast food places. I know this sounds crazy. I saw it while I was pulled over. Freaked me out so much I drove right through to the gas station and asked about it. Teenagers supposedly encounter it when they stand by the woods. People freeze when they see it, something like a manifestation of wanting something, those who want something they can't have. Others claim it was a person once, someone who spent too many nights watching someone from afar until it became something else. They say it's tall and impossibly thin, clammy, pale, as if it hasn't fully formed yet. Small head, sunken with a long neck. Matches up with what I saw. It never truly enters the light, and headlights won't ever reveal its face. And that was it. The user had stopped using his account years ago. That's all we have.